Hey folks, it's Ray with Taste Radio. Right now, I'm honored to be on a call with the one and only Todd Carmichael, the co-founder of La Colombe and Loftiwater. Todd, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Nice to see you, Ray.
It's so great to see you as well, Todd. 2021, been a very memorable year. We're recording this interview on December 31st, 2021. How would you describe the year for
Well,
yourself?
I just realized literally this moment that this is the last day of the year. That's how scrambly 2021 has been. It's been a ride. I can't put it in any other terms. It's been a real roller coaster ride, but exciting, as roller coasters are.
Nothing has been predictable about
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Except for the fact that you're wearing your La Colombe hat. That is predictable because I think from the day I met you, that was a standard part of your attire, and you're currently wearing it as well.
Mhm.
Um, I wonder. I got to think that there's a lofty water cap in the works. Is there?
Well, there's been a lot of talk, but first we have to have this surgically removed from my head, and then the other one, sewn back on. So, but yeah, I mean, in a way, you're addressing an issue which is La Colombe. I mean, it's your first child is always your first child, and I think that you'll be able to see me in this hat a lot in the future. But you will also see Lofty Water because that's the second born.
Well, the other thing about your attire that I always enjoyed to see was your blue shirt, your blue button-down Oxford, which I am a huge fan, as you can see as well. Is that still in the mix, or is the black zip up? Is that the new?
No, I stood in my dressing closet and I was looking at one of those shirts and I thought I should wear that, but I know Ray is going to be wearing his. So I thought I would throw in this huge mix and put in a dad sweater, just
Nice.
because, yeah, it would have been a little too themey.
Well, a lot of times when I'm doing these interviews, I'm wearing a blazer as well. But I feel like our conversations have always been great when we're a little bit more relaxed
Yeah.
and a little bit more casual in terms of the conversation.
Mhm.
And not that the other ones haven't been good. In fact, they've been great. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna wear the blazer for this because I just let's just have a conversation where it's a little less formal but still kind of formal. Does that make sense?
I agree, man. In a way, you're kind of touching on something that GP and I talk a lot about, which is, creativity comes in environments that aren't always strict and organized. It comes from an environment where you can express yourself, where you don't have a lot of limitations, and you find that, even the way you're dressing and the way you're behaving can affect the kind of things that you're creating at the same time. I like the the dressed down nature of business. I don't like to get formal, and we don't like too much structure because the beautiful ideas and the beautiful conversations, like you're saying, come from just kind of chilling out, man, and trying to find the truth.
Absolutely. You said the truth, which
Yeah,
just sparked a word in my mind. That word is the Matrix. Do you watch a lot of you watch a lot of movies?
I would say that Matrix is one of the greatest films ever made by man. Yeah, I mean this
There
is
you go.
yeah,
How
and
did I know you were a fan of the Matrix? I guess I felt it. I kind of just knew that about
I
you
have
without
four
knowing
kids.
about you.
And I know the lines out of it, and I make my children watch it with me like multiple times, because yeah, I mean, and creativity and fun, even making a product is about finding the truth in that product, and
Hmm.
it's really, it's that voyage that you go on in trying to find the impossible and finding what lies below the surface and going in places that other people aren't always willing to go. And yeah, so yeah, we're like we're off to the races here, aren't we?
We certainly are. One more thing on the Matrix before we move on. Have you seen the newest one?
I haven't yet. Have
Okay,
you?
I have seen it. It's on HBO Max, so I've seen it. It's great. You should definitely see it.
Okay, yeah, I'm going in.
Yeah, I won't give away too much, but it's a great movie. It's there's some very unexpected I guess it's unexpected in terms of what you might expect from the movie, if that makes any sense. I don't know. It's the Matrix, so that what I'm saying makes no sense anyway.
Well, that's the beauty of it, right? It
Yeah.
really is.
You're wearing the famous La Colombe baseball cap, but you're no longer with the company on an operational level. This is the first time in 30 years that you don't have a quote unquote job with La Colombe.
Mhm.
I wonder. obviously you've launched Loftiwater now, but um, the timing and the decision to walk away, I'm sure was something that you really, really had to struggle with and wrestle with. Talk about that decision and why 2021 was the right time to step aside.
Well, I mean, at first, I think it's a difficult thing for any founder that's like JP and I. I mean, it's such an emotional thing. And prior to COVID, it's not what I was thinking at all. I think it was really when COVID hit, it it kind of stopped time for me for a bit. The carousel stopped, the music stopped, everything stopped. And mostly because I lost my mother. And what that did is it made me take stock of what I was doing with my life and look at myself critically. And I believe that I've been put here, if that even exists, because I'm not really a religious guy, but my role in life is to create. And, JP and I recorded 4 beautiful albums. And the fourth one it was playing hard. It's like the Draft Latte was a big hit for us. And on that album were different songs that, we were playing over and over. And, I realized at one point that we weren't in the studio anymore. We weren't creating anymore. We were just kind of playing Stairway to Heaven again and again and again, right? And it's exciting because the crowd is all yelling, and it's just you're a bit of a rock star for a second, but you've kind of lost your way, and you're not creating anymore. So it was time for me to look at that and say, okay, I've got 20 creative years left. Am I going to spend it playing Stairway to Heaven, or am I going to go out and try to create something even bigger than the last album I made, right? Coffee is the second most consumed beverage on the planet, more than all other beverages combined except one, water. So you turn and you say, well, let's try to take on the big one. I mean, let's see what we can do. And it's hard to modify water. It really is, because it's such a beautiful solvent to begin with. But we looked at it critically, and I just went to work in the lab, and we created what we think is the next album. And we're loving how it behaves, how it sounds. And now it's up to us to build the platform and to bring it to people.
Well, what you've created is something very, very special, and I want to get into Loftiwater and talk all about it. Todd, you talked about your mom passing, and sincere condolences to you and your family. Mortality is something that I think a lot of people thought about or have been thinking about over the last 2 years, and it's scary to think about it sometimes. And I think, the fear that comes from this idea that you are going to die, or that, other people close to you have died, motivates some people to do different things with their lives, whether it be launching a new business or spending more time with their family. But is fear a good motivator? Are you motivated by that kind of fear?
Uh, I think I'm more driven by obsession. The fear comes into the equation. I mean, it's there. It's a part of the mosaic. Yeah. But it's just this idea that, I have a certain amount of time on the planet. What am I going to do with it? Right. And so I know at the end of my life, I'm going to look at this painting that I made, and I want it to have as many colors as possible. And I want it to have bold, courageous things in it. I admire courage. I admire courage, and courage means overcoming fear. And it also means leaving things behind. I know that there's a band now covering our old album, and that's great. And they're talented people. And for us, it's really about making that big courageous move to say, okay, all right, guys, we're going to step down from this and start all over. And then we have a plant we just finished about 2 weeks ago, and we're going to fire it up, and we're going to see if this music is understood by enough people to have it make sense.
Well, I'm understanding it more and more as I sip on your Loftiwater. And let's talk about the brand. Let's talk about the bubbles. Let's talk about everything related to what you've created here. First of all, why is it called Loftiwater?
Well, lofty because it has higher ideals. I mean, we want the brand, the company, and a lot of its aspirations to really, be something that's it's a super high aspiration. Both product and the direction of the company. We're taking 20% of all the profits from the company and we're driving it into projects that we think are important. We want it to have high ideals and the personality of the company. We want it to be someone that has high ideals. That it not just be about the bottom line, that it be about doing good. And not in that, fake way, in the real way. And, it's really that. It's about the aspiration of higher ideals, lofty water.
How do you define fake and real?
Well, I think that there's a lot of words like said, like, I don't know, like brotherhood. You have people who say, hey, brother, that's fake. You don't fucking know what brotherhood is. I know what brotherhood is. Brotherhood is me and JP. That's real when it's deep inside your soul. And I think there's a lot of words used out there that aren't like genius. It's genius. It's like, no, it's not. Like, there are a few geniuses. I'm not one. You're not one. I mean, a genius is like way up there. So we use these words and they don't really have meaning. So it's the way I separate them, saying, well, no, that's fake and that one isn't real. JP and I are a true brotherhood, but we're not geniuses. We're not. We're just two normal dudes that work really hard.
I'm glad you mentioned that you work really hard because I think, there are some geniuses for whom, things come very easy. But for most people, the struggle, the hard work is how you get to, you get to achieve the things that geniuses achieve. And one thing that you mentioned the last time we spoke that really stuck with me is that the struggle of creation, that struggle is where you're using your time most wisely. And it's interesting because another entrepreneur who recently left his own company, his own sparkling water company, ironically enough, not to call Loftiwater a sparkling water, but we'll get to that in a second, but who left his own water company recently, talks about how the obstacle is the way. And it kind of reminded me of your comment of the struggle of creation and the obstacle is the way. How do you think about hard work and struggling as it relates to an end goal? I mean, is it always hard? Is it always that obstacle? Is that the journey that you thrive upon?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way he says that, and in a lot of ways, I think they're very similar. For me, it's like if it's easy to climb a mountain, you shouldn't be climbing it. It's when I mean, particularly in the creative space, it's so much doubt, and it's just so. I mean, it's traumatic. You're chasing at whispers, at ghosts, at things that don't exist. You're looking for black holes, man, and it's this whole traumatic experience that's popping around in your head and you're trying to solve a puzzle that's never been solved. And in that space is where I think I belong. It's torture the entire time, but it's where I belong. And when you crack it, I mean, you crack it. I'm in my lab downstairs in my house and I'm holding the Stanley freaking cup, man, because I know I've just cracked it. And the tears are coming down my face because the months and months and months that led up to that moment were just constant self-doubt, constant trial and error. How many failures? Is this going to be the last failure before you pack it up? Or are you just going to keep going at it and keep going and keep going? And I just kept going. And in that space, that's where I call the struggle, is I think where I belong. It's, you've known the things I've done physically, like walking across big expanses. It's the same deal, just step after step after step after step. I think that's kind of my strength. If you give me a choice between genius or drive, I pick drive. Drive will get you there. Genius watches a lot of Netflix too, huh?
Mm-hmm.
They do, goofs off. Drive gets her done, but drive hurts.
Drive can certainly hurt, but it's worth it if you achieve your goal. Although I wonder, once you get to your goal, what then?
Yeah.
Do you have goals, I guess, or is everything always a goal to the next one?
I mean, here, this isn't now this is a big problem I have, right? So I've achieved certain goals, both in business and outside of business. And the moment I do, I become really depressed. And that's just a part of the journey because you've killed your dreams now, haven't you? You know, once you've achieved it, once you've topped out on a mountain or you've touched a pole or you've made it across the desert, now your life doesn't have a lot of challenge to it. And you've killed it. I had a dog who was obsessed with this squirrel that lived in the back of the house. And every morning he was jacked to get out there and chase that squirrel. And he could never catch it until one day he did. And that dog was so depressed for weeks until eventually, another squirrel moved in, but he didn't have his squirrel anymore. And I understand that. You don't, I mean, at the same time, you're driven to, biologically driven, the dog in that case, to achieve a certain goal. And then when you do, oh shit, now what do you do? Now for a creative like me, it means I just move on to the next album. I get to write a next song. I get to, you can continue to, go to the next thing. What becomes difficult is that if you have a major success, it can become crippling. It can take all that away. And it's really hard to walk away from, and it's just tough. Dude, I mean, JP and I walked away from $1 million salaries and all the luxury of the whole, because we needed to, we needed to find that next thing to do. And if it weren't for COVID, I would still be there. I mean, it took that for me to look at it and go, okay, Christ, dude, you're a singer songwriter. Go back in the studio and write some songs. You need to keep writing. When it's all said and done, I want to have 10 albums, not just 4.
But don't you want to be comfortable while you're doing it, or is comfort the enemy of progress?
Well, comfort is what you get when you're with your family. I mean, and I'm a hockey dad, which means I do a lot of driving with my little guy, and and I make space for my family. It's really important. But work, if I'm going to take time away from my family, I've got to go out and I've got to be a Viking. I mean, I have to have it make sense to the whole picture. And the financial thing has been off the table forever. I mean, GP and I kind of got over our number years ago. Now it's about something different. It's about fulfilling my purpose in the business world. And then relaxation and comfort comes when we're done with this interview, I'm going to go watch, cartoons with my little guy. And he wants to make fresh pasta today. So we're going to do that. Right. So that is where the beauty is found.
Outstanding. I've never made fresh pasta. You've just inspired me to make some with my daughter today. So, or at least some point this weekend. So
just YouTube it, man. Get a bunch of eggs and flour and go for it. It's fun.
There you go. Yeah, creation is definitely in your blood, whether it be pasta or beverages. As you mentioned, water was the opportunity you saw to create a new brand in the beverage industry. Loftiwater is the result. The bottle I'm holding in my hand is your black cherry variety. It's called shimmering. It's described as shimmering bubbles. Now, when you were tinkering around in your basement, were you thinking about a bubbly water, or was it just water that you could create that was different? I mean, what was your inspiration to get into this sparkling, carbonated, shimmering space?
Yeah. First, I think any kind of innovation starts just with thought. You just spend a lot of time in your own mind, and you spend time. I walk aisles and I walk in the stores, and I'm looking for spaces that are void. You're looking for black holes among stars, right? And it dawned on me that when you go to a restaurant, they only give you this binary option, which is still or sparkling. And it felt very black and white. And particularly when it comes to mouthfeel, when you look across the table, or you look at the menu, you have thousands of mouthfeels, but in water, you got 2. Really? Is that all you got? So you look up carbon and you realize that was invented in 1807. And you go, I mean, 1807, I mean, come on. They were putting leeches on people. I mean, so it's the truth. You see, I mean, they had large animals pooping in the streets. I mean, this is where we were. And So you got to say to yourself, the technology can't be that extraordinary, and there has to be. It can't just be black and white. There has to be a spectrum there somehow. And so you do all your research and you recognize that it's super easy to drive carbon into water, and it wants to hold on because of a chemical bond, and it's very difficult to use any other kind of gas. I mean, it's just really the existing filling systems that that make that have created this binary situation that, they're all designed to only dissolve carbon into water, not hydrogen, not oxygen, not argon, not any of the gas. You're breathing 14 gases right now. None of those, except for the carbon that you're breathing, can be injected in water. No, they all can. It's just really fucking hard. Sorry, I should have said that. Okay, it's just really hard. And so I needed to figure out how to do that. And then, so I did. And once I did that, I then tasted all the gases there were consumable by people. And you find they all have different, like, behavior. They have different bubbles, they have different flavors. They bring out different, like, sides of essences. They can be sweet. And so you realize that it hasn't been binary the whole time, that there's an entire spectrum of bubbles between flat and sparkling. And I think that there's a whole platform there. And I think the industry could really use an injection of new gases.
This reminds me of when we first spoke about 6 years ago. I think it was in February or so, 2016. And you had talked about La Colombe's draft latte in a can. And you were like, this is a game changer. This is going to change the coffee business, or the ready to drink coffee business. And I said, what makes you think that? And you said, Ray, just taste it. I was like, really? I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I went to Expo West and I tried it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a revelation. This is unlike any other coffee beverage I've had, or beverage period. And I think in so many ways, it's true with Loftiwater. That statement is true with Loftiwater. I've already had one of your bottles. I forget what variety it was. So I have the grapefruit, the black cherry, and the lemon. Which one am I missing?
There's three more, and there's strawberry, and there's a grapefruit. Which one did you try?
I think the strawberry. I'm missing the strawberry. But the mouthfeel, as you described, is unlike any other mouthfeel you would have for a carbonated beverage. And I'm going to open this up now. See if I can get some. You'd think that the bottle would explode when you open this, because it's very bubbly.
Uh-huh.
And as I drink it, the bubbles are so soft on your palate, and there's just like an incredible amount of flavor behind it. And then you turn the bottle around, and there's 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 anything. It's just bubbly water.
Yeah.
Shimmering water, that is.
Yeah.
How? What's the secret behind Loftiwater? I mean, how did you achieve what you have achieved here?
Well, first we have to talk a little nerdy science. When you inject CO2 into water, this beautiful solvent, you're creating another complex chemical called carbonic acid. And it bites. That's that burn flavor, but it also mutes the shit out of flavors. It mutes flavors. So by eliminating that pounding on you, you can experience all of the spectrum of flavor of essence. So that's number one. And then number two is I blended the gases to bring more out. So because just carbon is salty, there are other gases that are sweet. So you go, all right, well, let's bring some sweetness in. And then there's that buttery kind of flavor to it, that buttery cream feeling. That's argon. I bring that in. So we're just blending the gases to create an effect that matches that flavor. And that's it. I mean, you don't need sweeteners, you don't need sugars, you don't need those things if you blend right.
Yeah, the tagline of no burn, no bite, deceptively sweet. Shimmering bubbles is the phrase on top of that, at the top of the label. And the way you described it the last time we spoke was effervescent but not carbonated.
Yeah.
I think the question here is, why should consumers care about why should consumers care about a different kind of bubbles? I mean, I know because I've tried this, but for folks who haven't tried this, how do you get them to care about, the differences in what you're doing versus other carbonated water or sparkling water brands?
I mean, I don't know if you're asking the question about like marketing across the platform of the United States and getting people to, and early adopters and blah, blah, all the mechanics of that, or just in general, like why would anyone care about Loftiwater? First, I can tell you that 1/3 of the United States of America find carbon repulsive. Okay, it's like cilantro to some people. Now, there's a biological reason for this, and it's really interesting. And it's just how it attacks this trigeminal area of the brain and how you perceive the carbonic acid in your mouth. It's the same area that regurgitates food and you feel mouth pain. So 1/3 of folks just hate carbon, hate it, can't drink it. I got 3 in my family. I just like, they can't. There are those people, right? But they're left to consume just still. And still is nice, but still isn't a celebration, isn't it? It's kind of boring. It really is. I mean, even these, you add a little essence, it's still kind of, the mouthfeel isn't there. So you have those folks, right? But you also have this middle third that aren't really turned on by carbon, but still kind of fancy it once in a while at restaurants. And then you have another third, which are just carbon fanatics. I mean, that drink like 12 to 15 a day. And that's great. I think it's fine. It's like spicy food, right? It's like those people who like really spicy food, that's what they're going to like. They don't eat spicy food for breakfast and lunch and dinner every day. So, they're going to kind of mix it up a little bit. So I think at the beginning, I'm looking at kind of bringing people on who have been shut out of the effervescent space because of a biological kind of propensity. And those people who aren't turned on completely by carbon. And I think that's enough people to stage a little mini revolution.
So would you describe this as non-carbonated?
It's non-carbonated. I mean, I know it's, but we for so long we thought there was not, you could not change the bubble, right? We've innovated everything, but everyone looked over the bubble. Just as crazy little fucking Philadelphia said, you gotta look at the bubble. That we equated carbon with effervescence. It's not true. Effervescence is a giant envelope that includes carbon, but should include others too. It's just no one's bothered to work at it. And I did during COVID. I mean, that's what I did.
Would you describe Lofty Water as creating a new category, or is it playing within the space of bubbly water?
Okay, I look at it in 2 ways because it depends how egotistical and big-headed I'm feeling. I have a little cough, so I don't feel huge. I mean, if I'm right about certain things, I believe that over time you're going to have still, sparkling, and shimmering, and everything on those platforms that you have in still and sparkling, you'll have in shimmering. So it should have things like energy drinks. I mean, like Red Bull's slightly carbonated. You could have all the different drinks that they're hanging below carbon, hang below shimmering. It should be its own platform. And that before I die, I want to hear one time at a table, I want to hear, would you like to have still, sparkling, or shimmering water tonight? That would be beautiful. That would be my hit album.
Yeah, but then that would be almost as if like you're creating a generic. Well, it would almost make shimmering a generic term, right? Though, um, whereas, I mean, is that what you're going for? Is creating something that can be ubiquitous and doesn't necessarily need to be branded?
If you're an explorer and you get to find an entire continent and it's its own continent, like you show up and on that continent you're going to have different companies and different, in the future you'll have different things that sprout on that continent. That's the biggest thing you can do. I mean, from Champlain to Cook to all of them. I mean, I'm kind of thinking sometimes that shimmering is that it's an undiscovered area where we can grow lots of things, and it's a place. It's like the land of still, the land of sparkling, and the land of shimmering. It's an entirely new launch platform that could hold lots of different categories and different products.
I'm trying to think of other comparisons to what you're doing in the food and beverage world. I'm having a hard time doing it. I guess probably one example, but it's not a great example, is like, okay, you could have your beverage hot, cold, or lukewarm. I mean, that's again not a great example, but I mean, are there any other food and examples in food and beverage that sort of inspired the idea of shimmering?
Well, I mean, the one that I really looked at is, Lord Stanley, 1807. He was a chemist of acclaim at the time. I mean, nowadays we wouldn't consider him that, but he invented the process of injecting carbon into water and creating effervescence. Then 3 years later, a guy named Mr. Schweppes took it and started making products out of it. Now, I look at that and I look at what carbon has created, that injection of carbon into water, the trillions of dollars of wealth that it has created, the empires that have been built on that 1807 and that man. I look and say, wow, that would be stunning if shimmering could find that kind of, purchase. But first, what you got to do is you got to be Mr. Schweppes. You got to go out and you got to really start, bringing this to people and seeing if they react to it. And eventually that brought on soda, and that brought on the rest of the, huge piece of the beverage world. Ironically, this is coming at a time that a lot of folks are leaving those kinds of classic drinks, and they're looking curiously for other things. It's a big jump to leave soda and go to just carbonated water. It's a huge leap. Not everyone can make it, right? And so, but I see an exodus, and I know you do. I know the whole industry does. So where are they're going to, and are they perfectly satisfied? Would they like to have a sweet that's not chemical or sugar? Would they like a bubble that doesn't like rip at their throat and burn their stomachs and give them, what's that called? Acid reflux. Did you know that 1/3 of America has acid reflux? 1/3. Dude, that's crazy. I'm luckily not one of them, but it's like, and I think to myself, it's this carbonated water isn't making that better. So what do? You create an effervescence that's less acidic. I mean, that seems logical to me.
Yeah, seems logical to me as well. And it seems like there are some parallels between what you're talking about and when you created La Colombe. You were giving people an option for a better cup of coffee, trying to create a special experience for folks. And in some ways, actually, there's a even more striking parallel in calling it third wave coffee. You had coffee, and then I guess Starbucks is second wave, if we can call Starbucks second wave, and then we had brands like and companies like La Colombe coming and creating this whole new experience. People, I think, instantly recognized how special La Colombe was. Um, do you think people will recognize very quickly how special Loftiwater is? If not, I mean, how do you describe it when you're not there? When you're not, at the grocery store, next to the shelf of Loftiwater, explaining how special this product is, how do you do it in a way that will induce trial?
Yeah, I mean, that's the old drive trial. I'm going to back up a second though, because JP and I are calling this the third water. That's what we say. This is how we describe it. And it just is ironic because of the third wave deal. And at this time, and we started in La Colombe in 94, and then everyone was telling us that was smart, that coffee was done. It's just done and no one would understand. And we came to the conclusion that people do understand, that people are smart. And just like you, I said, just try it. I mean, you have a mouth, it's connected to your brain, and there you go. It's like, what else do I need? I mean, do I need to give you a deck? It's like, no, it should be obvious. Anything good should be obvious. Now, driving trial in a very crowded area is a big challenge, right? And what you have to do is focus really hard at experiential marketing and really, really commit to that. And not by doing it through third party, but by getting your people in the street and giving away as many. Like with the draft latte, in the first 6 months, we gave over 1 million cans away. Cans. And this is boom, boom, boom. We weren't doing it cutesy, Twitter and all that stuff. We were finding people and handing them product and then watching them react like you did. Now we'd like to do the same thing with Loftiwater, and we're going to do it really in the Northeast to begin with, and just give people a drink. That's it. And it switches something off or not. And to go back, and the reason why I pretend to be a CEO, I pretend to know what I'm talking about here. It's all really bullshit, okay? Because what's true is this: I just make shit that makes me happy. I like it. That's pretty much what I do. I keep going until I go, oh God, fuck. And then I give it to JP, goes, dude. Then we go, yeah. And then we tweak and tweak and we continue tweaking and we get happy about something. We go, that is amazing. We should share these with people. And then we go, oh yeah, what's the bullshit we say in the CEO? Oh yeah, we're gonna drive trial and we're gonna do this. Dude, no one knows what they're doing really. All you can do is just make something that's amazing and then work your ass off and getting it on the shelves. So that's the truth. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've had a million hits or you're a billion-dollar company or you're just starting out, you're 24 years old with a startup. That's all it is. Make something that really makes you happy. Forget the focus groups, forget all the people, just forget everything. If it makes you jacked, it's got to make other people jacked too, at least some, enough. And, and then what we do is we just give millions of them away until there's enough that it rises. And then let the marketing people take over. That's as honest as I can be.
I think that has been proven true. If you just look at Draft Latte, that process and that approach seemed to work. Although I don't think you have a production facility as large as that of La Colombe to produce 1 million bottles of Loftiwater. You do have a production facility, as you mentioned. You just
I'm close.
what's that?
I said I'm close. I got to do the math, but I'm close. We're only at about 36,000 cases a week with this factory, but we're gonna be hitting it in overdrive and making sure that lots of people get it. And that's the idea. I think at the end of the day, no one really knows what people are going to react to, and you just have to make yourself happy and make something that's beautiful and that's good for people. I mean, I would never drink a coffee out of a can until I made the one I made. And I went, oh, I like that one. Okay, all right, let's go. And for the water, it was the same.
Quick tangent on the coffee. I started seeing La Colombe's Draft Latte on shelves without the little cap that you had created to enhance the mouthfeel. It was just like a little ring that was right on top of the can, and it would allow you to drink the coffee so that the coffee would land on a certain part of your palate, a la certain wine glasses. And La Colombe has since removed those caps. Is that something that bothers you, or is that something that you're okay with nowadays?
Well, I think any founder, when they leave, there's a huge amount of different emotions that happen. And one of them is this profound belief that no one could do it as good as you. And that could be true or not. And it's probably not, right? But it's maybe. And so, if someone modifies one of your songs that you made, it kind of stings. But at the same time, it's their song now. And I still think, obviously the product inside of it is beautiful. It's still amazing. Come on. And the guys over there that are making this, they know what they're doing. And, JP and I have put certain algorithms inside that company to keep it in motion for years to come. And a decision like that, I think ultimately, was for the environment. There were so many fans that loved it, and there were so many people who hated it because of the environmental issues, and they came on the side of the environmental issues. And so I respect that decision. But still, you're always going to be, it's just weird. It's just a weird situation. And the reason why I bring it up, because I know that there are going to be lots of founders that are listening to this that are eventually going to be in the same seat I am. And, it's such a weird thing to experience all these emotions of seeing, your company being run without you. It's just a hard thing to do. I'm lucky in this case because the folks who are running it are really amazing. They really are. That crew over there is stunning. So anyway, the lip guard, I think, was an environmental question, and they felt that they wanted to fall on that side of the fence.
I'm glad to hear that you're still on good terms with everyone at La Colombe. When you were having that conversation with Hamdi Ulukaya, who's the founder of Chobani and the majority owner of La Colombe, I recall you always talked about such a great friendship with him and such a great relationship with him. And in some ways, it feels like that friendship has been altered. Has it, or am I making that up?
Not really. No, I say his company is Chobani. I mean, and La Colombe is an investment. I mean, and he is really, really, really busy, and he's a father, and he's like me. Fathers get busy, man. So it's like, I don't know. Do you have any friends that don't have children? You're probably not. They're calling you all the time. Are you calling them? Right? Because you're running a massive company, and he's going public, and he's got his family, and I'm doing this, which is, I don't know if you know, but a startup takes a lot of your time. So I know that at the end of this thing, we'll meet back up, hopefully on a sailboat somewhere. But it's just really a question of just being overloaded.
It's one thing to launch an IPO as Chobani is doing. It's another thing to launch a production facility as you are doing. It's another thing to launch a production facility that may have no comparison. I'm not sure. Was there no co-packer? Was there no co-manufacturer that could produce what you wanted to produce? Did you have to sort of rewrite production for Loftiwater? I mean, is that the reason you created your own factory?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting area to talk about. So if I believe that if you can make your product on standard equipment, it's not innovation. In my terms, I mean, in your terms, it's great. I mean, but in the way I define it, so it's almost as if I start out with the understanding that my area of expertise is those areas that can't be made in co-packing facilities. It can't be. You cannot make a draft latte in any co-pack facility. It can't be done. It's physically impossible. Now, I did go to the FDA years ago, and we went out to Kabul, and I showed them how I would have to redesign their plant. And they were like, "You're out of your mind. I mean, that's going to cost us $20 million." It was just like, they said, "Go away, you crazy person." So it was clear that now if I went to, let's say, a counter pressure filler and it said, "Okay, here, with basically, those who create carbon," I would have to completely alter their plant in significant ways, like cut half of the line out, remove and put in a whole new piece, remove their fillers. And you go, okay, well, no one's going to have that. I mean, no one's going to have it. So you have to go and create your own. That's it. I mean, it's, part of it is too, I feel there's a lot of benefit because when you make your own stuff, you learn more. You learn and you're constantly learning, and you can modify and modify and modify and make it better over time. And that's hard to do with a co-packer, because they want to crank out 30,000 cases and, of each flavor and then wait for the next cycle. And that's it. Where I like to drop the line for 48 hours, modify it completely, fire it back up, and then run it for 24 straight. No one's going to put up with that. So yeah, one, it's the physical nature of it. I mean, particularly this way of creating effervescence, it's radically different than any line you'll ever see. I mean, the engineers that I have that came in over the last couple of weeks, they couldn't figure out what it was. These are beverage guys. I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? How does it even work? I mean, you go, okay, yeah, all right. That's how far off co-packing we are.
Did you? It sounds all very expensive. If you don't mind me saying, did you did you have a budget for all this, or is this just like I'm going with my passion, and my passion is what's going to lead us to success?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess there's a budget. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I should responsibly tell you there's a budget. No, but you get in the creative process, and you just, I mean, the areas that are easy, the part of the line, I would go, all right, bring me used equipment and I'm going to recondition it. I'll save money there. And, there's the classic pieces like the reverse osmosis and your tanks and your crap like that, right? Filtration, blah, blah. So you go, okay. But then when it comes to the cherry pieces, the issue is there is no budget because there is no machine to buy. I mean, every single piece and part's brand new. I mean, it's CAD designed by myself and then freaking run and then assembled. And it's like we take a chassis from another industry and then we build upon it. And yeah, sometimes you can go over budget. So, and that's why GP and I, we've always liked to do that seed capital and, first round ourselves. We didn't take money from anyone for 20 years. 20 fucking years, man. We'd always did it ourselves. We just plow it back in because we wanted the freedom to create the way we would create, and once you kind of do, it's tough to create again. Just go in and ruin a bunch of canvases because you had an idea. It's hard for other people. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And then when it settles down, it's all predictable, then I think at that time we might bring someone in.
Well, sometimes it can be kind of difficult to scale if you're only putting your own money into the company, and you talked about how you're currently limited at production, and that impacted your launch of Loftiwater. Now it was a soft launch, but you did sell out really, really quickly.
Crazy.
Yeah, getting to scale. I wonder, how much more you can really put into a company when scaling requires you to replicate the kind of equipment that you're using on a much larger basis. I guess what I'm asking for, there are a lot of entrepreneurs I speak with who are in an early stage who have, just gotten into this business, and they're like, I have a really innovative idea. This has never been done before. It's going to cost a ton of money. Who can I talk to? What are the investors I can talk to about this? And the investors will always come back and be like, this is not a scalable proposition.
Yeah.
What do you say to folks like that?
Ultimately, I think that's part of the whole challenge of being a creator entrepreneur. For me, I look at it and say, I know how to get to a certain amount of cases a week without anyone on the outside coming in. I want to be able to provide solid, hard, numbers to people as investors too. I don't want anyone to just bet on my dreams. So, we're already designing our second plant, and with volumes that make a great deal of sense across the country. And I'd like to see a big part of that sold and committed to by the time I look over to someone and say, okay, are you ready to follow? Because an investor has to follow, not lead. They have to follow. And I have to make sure that I'm way out ahead before I ask them to follow me. The scalable thing, it depends on the idea. Some mountains are just easier to scale. Some products are just easier to scale, than others.
Yeah, I think that's true. Although at the outset, when you are building a brand, sometimes there are things that you have to do that may not ever be part of your scaling process, such as getting your bottles from Venezuela, which I think is.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
God, can you believe it?
Now, just for context for folks listening, when Todd and I spoke a few weeks back, he was like, somehow I got Venezuela involved in Loftiwater. And I was like, really? Okay, talk about that. So, yeah, why?
So I'm fascinated by preforms. Those little, they look like little test tubes that you blow to create your bottle. And all preforms aren't created equal. Obviously there's a different gram weight and the rest of it, but they can be processed differently that allows gases to be held in the bottle longer. So if you look at, this is a PET bottle, right? It's just standard PET bottle with carbon in it.
For folks who aren't watching the video, you're holding a bottle of Coca-Cola, or at least it looks like.
Yeah, Diet Coke. I don't know, why is this on my desk? Well, this can only hold that carbon for 17 weeks. And if you are a startup, 17 weeks isn't enough time. You need to extend that beyond 17 weeks, right? And there's ways of processing the PET in that preform to allow for a lot longer. Now, I fell in love with one. I wasn't really paying attention to where they were coming from, and they're being done in Venezuela, which is a super stable country, and fell in love with the bottle. Man, the shelf life was coming off like I liked it, and then we had, I don't know, maybe a couple, maybe 20,000 bottles or so that we run, and we're expecting the rest of the preforms to come in, but at a time that, once we launched real easy on the website, we were thinking it's going to be kind of quiet, and this is enough bottles to carry us to when the preforms come in. Now, it didn't happen that way. We got hammered. Just like, In 3 days, we had to shut the site down because the preforms hadn't arrived and we just got absolutely crushed. And we have 500 followers on the freaking Instagram account and we didn't say much. I know why. It's because of you, Ray. You're the one that screwed the whole thing.
Taste Radio is that popular? No, I don't know about that. And we did mention Loftiwater, and we talked about it on the show a few weeks back. I mean, how could we not? But
Dude, so, and you're right, and I think we're gonna fumble along just like we always have. I know I'm supposed to pretend to be this really smart CEO, and we'll fumble along, but I have a feeling that we'll get there because we know how to climb, and we know how to bear down on something, and and we have loads of really very, very talented people who are interested in working with us, which is very important. I mean, your team is key, and there are some very talented people who've come to us, and we'd like to bring them on, and but we'd like to go as far as we can without taking anyone else's cash. That's the idea. Just try to hold your breath as long as you can, and then open up when you can really make sure. I want to be that entrepreneur that makes people money, guaranteed. Because when you're that guy, your life is really nice. No one bothers you. No one calls you on the weekend, right? It's just like everything's cool. And they leave you alone when it's time to create and in your lab. This is what I dream to have. And I hope to put together some partners in the future and then really ramp. And we'll go crazy and it'll be fun. But I want to make sure that everyone gets, that everyone does well when they bet on JP and I.
Well, as you know, and as countless other food and beverage entrepreneurs know, that phone call from the investor is going to come from time to time. And sometimes it's an unhappy call. Sometimes it's a very happy call. And I think one of those things, the unhappy part of it, is what keeps people from loving the business that they're in. You clearly love the beverage industry, although getting out of it and getting back into the space is not something we see very often. There's a handful of folks that I can think of that have done it. Microbubble with Vitamin Water and Body Armor, Bill Creelman with Stirrings and Spindrift, Lance Collins. He's had countless numbers of beverage brands out there. Were you ever thinking about something other than beverage when you were getting into this sort of second stage of entrepreneurship?
Well, was I thinking about? No, I wasn't. This is a road that, I keep discovering. As I make a corner, I just see this other path. I go, man, I want to see what's down there. And what I do know is that I love to create new things, and I love to wow people. I love when people go, holy shit. And I like making things that make you go, holy shit. And I love watching it. And I'm kind of addicted to that. And, it reminds me of being in the kitchens back in the day with literally the greatest chefs in the country we were doing coffee for. And we would sit in the kitchen and I'd watch guys like Danny Meyer, even Jean-Georges, all these guys. They'd look through a little window and they were looking at the people eating their dish because they wanted to see their face. They want to see that reaction. And that's why they're doing it. And I have that same disease. I love it. And to live without that, it wouldn't be a life as interesting as this one. And then ultimately, I just want to see where this road goes. Can I create something? Lord Stanley, dude, I know the guy's name after 200 years. Can I create something like that? Can I create something like that? Can I create something that when I'm gone, that my kids see and go, my dad did that? And their kids go, my grandfather did that. Like that, he invented that in his basement. What can be more exciting than that? How can you not get addicted to that? It's the same as what I always say about music, when my wife is a singer-songwriter and she's doing it, I watch her. She loves to see the emotions that some of her music can create. And it's just that pure creative joy of seeing the reaction of someone else and touching someone, and I have that disease too. And it's just hard because why? Because of share value or some stupid, you don't get over that. And so you do, when you climb a really high mountain, when you get home and you recover, the next thing you do is you say, well, I got to climb a higher one. Right? That's just literally what happens. And I climbed coffee, and now I'm down and I want to climb another one, and I can't stop. I just can't. It's about that journey and about that struggle, right?
Absolutely. It's never a struggle speaking with you, Todd. I feel like we could go on for hours and hours talking about all kinds of different things, beverage industry or otherwise. But I really appreciate the time that you've given me today. Thank you so much once again. I know our audience is going to love this and be reaching out to you for more advice and insights into, how to play this game, so to speak. But in the meantime, just wishing you and your family a very happy new year, a very healthy and safe new year, and to all our listeners as well. I can't wait to see you in person, though. It's been a while.
I know it's been too long.
Yeah.
I'll probably see you in March, though, right?
Yeah, at Expo West.
Yeah. Let's make sure that both of us are well and we're not like with throat freaking colds. Okay.
Yeah, it's an inside joke for folks. Yeah, typically when Todd and I meet up in person, one of us is ill. I think I've been more ill than you have, or I've had more times that have been ill seeing you. But absolutely, lots of juice shots, lots of Loftiwater. Going to be healthy and strong for Expo West.
Yeah, Expo West. Can't wait.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, Todd, awesome talking to you. Thank you so much. And
you're the man. I appreciate it.
God bless.
Talk to you too.
Thank you.